My name is Samuel. I'm 82 years old. I have spent the last 14 years of my life studying something the church doesn't talk about from the pulpit. There are cities on this earth where exorcists refuse to go alone. Not villages, not abandoned ruins in the middle of nowhere. Major cities where millions of people live and work every single day. Cities you may have visited. Cities where someone listening to this might live right now. I know about these places because I went looking for answers after something happened to me in 1997 that I could not explain. And what I found, buried in the writings and interviews of Father Jose Antonio Fortea, one of the most experienced exorcists alive today, changed everything I understood about the world I was living in. Let me tell you what I learned. I grew up Catholic in a small town in Pennsylvania, went to Mass every Sunday, said my prayers before bed. I believed in God the way most people believe in gravity. It was just there. I didn't question it much, and I certainly didn't think about demons. Demons were for horror movies and medieval paintings. They weren't real in the way my kitchen table was real. That's what I believed for 63 years. Then my wife and I took a trip to New Orleans in the fall of 1997. We were celebrating our 40th anniversary. We walked through the French Quarter, ate beignets, listened to jazz. It was lovely. But something happened on the second night that I have never been able to shake. We were walking past one of those voodoo shops on Bourbon Street. My wife wanted to go inside just to look. I said fine. The moment I crossed the threshold of that store, I felt something press against my chest. Not physically, there was no one near me, but it was pressure, heavy, like someone had placed a wet wool blanket over my shoulders and my lungs at the same time. I felt angry for no reason. I felt afraid for no reason. I wanted to leave immediately, and I could not understand why. My wife didn't feel anything. She was browsing the shelves, looking at candles and little dolls, treating it like a curiosity shop. I grabbed her arm and said we needed to go. She thought I was being ridiculous. Maybe I was. But that feeling stayed with me for 3 days after we left New Orleans. A heaviness, a darkness in my thinking that was not mine. I didn't know what to do with that experience. I told my parish priest, and he nodded politely and said I was probably just tired from traveling. I accepted that explanation for years, until I found the work of Father Jose Antonio Fortea. You see, Father Fortea has performed hundreds of exorcisms across more than 30 countries. He has written books and given interviews documenting patterns that most people never notice. And one of the things he says very clearly is that demonic activity is not random. Most people think possession happens here and there, scattered evenly across the world like raindrops. But that's not how it works. According to Fortea and other experienced exorcists, demonic presence clusters in certain areas, like disease in unsanitary conditions. These aren't just places with more reported cases. These are locations where the spiritual atmosphere itself has been compromised, where the barrier between the physical realm and the spiritual realm has become dangerously thin. And here's what I didn't understand then. Most people living in these cities have no idea they're in a danger zone. They experience the effects without understanding the cause. Higher rates of depression, addiction, violence, suicide. Phenomena that locals have simply accepted as normal. Father Fortea explains that demons don't attack people randomly. They establish strongholds. They claim territory. And once they do, breaking that control requires far more than a simple prayer. Let me explain what creates these conditions because Fortea identified specific factors. The first is historical trauma. Cities built on massive suffering carry that weight forward. He points to places where genocide occurred, where slave markets operated for centuries, where ritual sacrifices were performed in ancient times. The land itself remembers. This is not superstition. This is the observation of a man who has worked in spiritual warfare for decades. He has seen how demons attach themselves to places where innocent blood was spilled, where systematic cruelty was normalized, where entire populations were subjected to horrors beyond description. Take Port-au-Prince in Haiti. Father Fortea and several other exorcists have identified this city as having one of the highest concentrations of demonic activity in the Western Hemisphere. Haiti's history includes brutal colonization, slavery, revolution, and a religious landscape where Catholicism merged with voodoo practices. When you combine historical trauma with ongoing occult practices, You create an environment where demonic entities thrive. Fortea described arriving in Port-au-Prince for the first time and immediately feeling the oppression. Not just poverty or political instability, something deeper. A spiritual heaviness that made it difficult to pray, to concentrate, to feel hope. Other exorcists who work there report the same thing. Possessions in Haiti often involve multiple demons. Cases are more violent, more resistant to traditional rites. Fortea described one exorcism there, involving a young woman who manifested 7 different demons. Each one, when forced to identify itself, claimed to be a different voodoo loa or spirit. The exorcism lasted over 8 hours. Objects in the room moved without being touched. The temperature dropped drastically. The woman spoke in voices that could not have come from her throat. But what struck Fortea most was not the dramatic manifestations. He had seen those before. It was the confidence of the demons. They acted as if they owned the territory, as if the exorcist was the intruder. They mocked him. They said Haiti belonged to them, that Christianity had no power there, that he should leave and never return. Honestly, when I read that account, I felt the hair on my arms stand up, because I recognized something in it. That pressure I felt in New Orleans, that sense of intrusion, of not being welcome. It was smaller, but it was the same thing. And New Orleans is on Father Fortea's list too. He explains that it's different from other American cities because the occult isn't hidden there. It's commercialized. Voodoo shops line the streets. Psychics and mediums operate openly. Ghost tours treat spiritual entities as entertainment. This normalization creates an atmosphere where demonic activity is not only possible, but expected. Exorcists in Louisiana report higher numbers of possession cases than most other American states. Many involve people who initially sought out occult practitioners for help with money, love, or revenge. They participated in rituals without understanding the spiritual consequences. What started as curiosity opened them to genuine demonic oppression. You know what surprised me most? When I learned that Rome itself is on the list. Rome, the center of Catholicism. How could the seat of the church be a demonic hotspot? But Fortea explains that it makes perfect strategic sense. If you are a demon, where would you want to establish your presence? Right at the heart of your enemy's operations. Throughout history, Rome has been targeted by demonic activity precisely because it is the seat of the papacy. The Vatican has more exorcists per capita than almost anywhere else in the world. Not because Romans are more sinful, because Rome attracts spiritual warfare. Fortea describes it as a city under constant siege. The demons there tend to be smarter, more strategic, more determined. Some of the most difficult exorcisms he has ever witnessed happened in Rome. Cases involving priests, seminarians, Vatican employees. Demons attacking those people specifically to disrupt the church from within. Then there's Mexico City, built directly on top of Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital where thousands of human sacrifices were performed. Priests cut the hearts from living victims and offered them to their gods. This happened on an industrial scale, tens of thousands sacrificed in single ceremonies. Fortea explains that this kind of concentrated evil doesn't simply disappear because you build a new city on top. The demonic entities that were invited and worshipped through those practices established a presence. When the Spanish built Catholic churches over the temples, they addressed the visible idolatry, but did not always completely cleanse the spiritual foundation. Modern exorcists working in Mexico City report cases that don't happen anywhere else. Possessions that reference ancient Aztec deities, demons speaking in Nahuatl, the Aztec language, even when the possessed person has never studied it. Fortea says this isn't demonic creativity, it's their revelation of their historical connection to that place. And here's what I didn't understand then. These patterns repeat across the globe. Calcutta in India, Father Fortea includes it because of centuries of worship of Kali, the goddess of destruction, depicted with a necklace of skulls holding a severed head. Her temples involve animal sacrifices and rituals that, from a Christian perspective, invite demonic oppression. Exorcists working in and around Calcutta report possessions where entities claim to be Hindu gods or goddesses. The symptoms are identical to possessions anywhere else in the world. Supernatural strength, knowledge of hidden things, violent aversion to Christian prayer. But the cultural expression is different. Fortea emphasizes that demons adapt to the local religious context. They will claim to be whatever allows them to remain hidden and accepted. Varanasi, also in India, one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities on earth, the holiest city in Hinduism. Pilgrims come to bathe in the Ganges and cremate their dead on the Ghats. The city's economy and culture revolve around death. Bodies are cremated publicly 24 hours a day. Smoke from funeral pyres fills the air constantly. Rituals involving human ashes, bones, and offerings to the dead occur continuously. Fortea explains that this fixation on death, though culturally normalized, creates a spiritual atmosphere of heaviness and despair. Missionaries and exorcists working in Varanasi report being spiritually attacked with greater intensity than in other Indian cities. Fortea says this is because Varanasi is a stronghold, a place where demonic entities have been worshipped and honored for thousands of years. Challenging that presence requires extraordinary spiritual preparation and protection. Jerusalem. Fortea calls it the most spiritually contested city on earth. 3 major world religions claim it as holy ground. The history of wars, persecutions, and religious conflict spans millennia. Where genuine holiness exists, demonic opposition intensifies. Exorcists working in Jerusalem report phenomena that don't occur elsewhere. Possessions that seem to deliberately target pilgrims. Demonic manifestations at or near sacred sites. Cases where the possessed person specifically mocks or blasphemes against Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, depending on the faith of the exorcist. Bangkok makes the list because of its thriving sex trafficking industry and widespread occult practices. Traffickers often use occult rituals to control their victims, binding them through fear and spiritual oppression. The traumatized victims become vulnerable to possession. Exorcists working with trafficking survivors in Southeast Asia report that many victims display signs of demonic oppression even after being physically freed. The spiritual slavery continues. Fortea says breaking these cases requires not just exorcism, but intense spiritual healing and psychological support. Sao Paulo in Brazil. The country has the largest Catholic population in the world, but also millions practicing Spiritism, Umbanda, Candomblé, and other Afro-Brazilian religions involving spirit possession and communication with the dead. In Sao Paulo, it's common for people to attend Catholic Mass and then visit a Spiritist center in the same week. They see no contradiction. But Fortea warns that attempting to communicate with the dead or invite spirit possession, even in a controlled religious context, violates biblical teaching and opens dangerous doors. Demons will impersonate deceased loved ones or benevolent spirits to gain entry into a person's life. Brazilian exorcists report some of the highest numbers of possession cases in the world. Manila in the Philippines, the most Catholic country in Asia, yet significant demonic activity. High Catholic population doesn't automatically mean low demonic presence. In fact, where faith is strong, demonic opposition often increases. Many Filipinos attend Mass and then visit a local healer who uses occult methods. They pray the rosary and also consult fortune tellers. Filipino exorcists often perform multiple exorcisms in a single day. Istanbul. It straddles 2 continents and has been a major city for thousands of years. Constantinople was the center of Eastern Christianity before falling to the Ottoman Empire. Fortea explains that this religious transition, often violent, left spiritual scars. In cities where Christianity was once strong but then suppressed or eliminated, there is a particular intensity in demonic activity against remaining Christians or converts. It's as if the demons are defending reconquered territory. Cusco in Peru, capital of the Inca Empire, another civilization that practiced human sacrifice. The Incas sacrificed children in mountain ceremonies called capacocha. They drugged children and left them to freeze to death on mountain summits. Fortea explains that these innocent victims killed in the name of false gods cry out for justice. The demonic entities worshipped through those sacrifices establish territorial claims that persist. Las Vegas. The city's identity revolves around sin, gambling, prostitution, excessive drinking, drugs, and a philosophy of moral relativism. When a city normalizes and commercializes sin, it becomes a magnet for demonic activity. The occult is also common there. Psychics, fortune tellers, magic shows that sometimes incorporate genuine occult practices. Exorcists in Nevada report that many possession cases involve people who participated in occult activities while in Las Vegas, often as entertainment. Ouija boards, seances, psychic readings. Fortea warns that demons don't care if you're joking or serious when you invite them. Permission is permission. After all his experience across multiple continents, Fortea identifies a tie for the most spiritually dangerous city, Port-au-Prince and Varanasi. These represent the two primary ways demons establish strongholds. Haiti, through historical trauma combined with ongoing occult practices. Varanasi, through ancient and continuous worship of false gods centered on death. In both cities, the spiritual oppression is so intense that exorcists must take extraordinary precautions. They never work alone. They fast extensively before arriving. They maintain constant prayer and sacramental protection. And even then, they often experience severe spiritual attacks. The crucial question is whether these strongholds can be broken. Fortea's answer is yes, but not easily. It requires constant prayer, fasting, sacramental presence, and often suffering. A single exorcist working temporarily in a spiritually dark city won't change the fundamental spiritual landscape. It requires a community of believers establishing a beachhead of holiness and maintaining it over time. He points to examples where this has happened. Cities that were once centers of paganism became Christian strongholds. The transformation was neither instant nor painless. Early Christians were martyred. Churches were built on the ruins of pagan temples. Generation after generation maintained the faith until the spiritual atmosphere shifted. But Fortea also warns that the reverse can happen. Cities that were once Christian can fall back into darkness if the faithful abandon prayer, the sacraments, and holy living. He says we're seeing this in parts of Europe and North America right now. As Christianity declines and occult practices increase, the spiritual atmosphere deteriorates. I am 82 years old. I have had 14 years to sit with this information since I first encountered Father Fortea's work, and I'll tell you what it did to me. It made me take my faith seriously for the first time in my life. Not faith as habit, not faith as cultural identity, faith as warfare. Faith as the only thing standing between the people I love and something that wants to destroy them. Fortea offers specific advice for people living in or visiting these cities. Stay in a state of grace. Frequent confession, daily prayer, regular mass. Avoid all occult participation, no matter how innocent it seems. Don't visit psychics. Don't use boards. Don't participate in rituals of other religions, not even out of curiosity or respect. Surround yourself with sacramentals, holy water, blessed salt, religious medals, crucifixes. These are not superstitions. They are tools the Church provides for spiritual protection. If you experience something you believe might be demonic, don't try to handle it alone. Contact a priest. Let the Church's trained experts evaluate the situation. And remember that God is more powerful than any demon. Fear is natural, but despair is a sin. Demons want you to feel hopeless, abandoned, and powerless. The truth is the opposite. You have access to the power of Christ through the sacraments and through prayer. No demon can ultimately prevail against someone who remains faithful to God. I think about that night in New Orleans sometimes, that pressure on my chest, that heaviness that followed me home. I didn't understand it then. I understand it now. I was standing in a place where the spiritual atmosphere had been compromised, and I felt it the way you feel a change in temperature when you walk into a cold room. It was real. It was not my imagination. And knowing what I know now, I thank God I walked out of that shop when I did. If any of this opened your eyes the way Fortea's work opened mine, I need you to do something. Leave a comment below and tell me which of these cities surprised you most. Or tell me about something you experienced that you could never explain. You're not alone in this. Subscribe to this channel because we are going to go deeper into what exorcists like Father Fortea face every single day. Things the Church knows but rarely speaks about openly. Hit the like button so this reaches someone who needs to hear it, and share it with the people you care about. Because spiritual warfare is real. The map exists, and the sooner you accept that reality, the better equipped you will be to navigate it. I'm Samuel. I'm 82 years old, and I am telling you the truth.